Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
This is Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made. I am GMB Kamichuk, a working writer, illustrator, graphic novelist, and all-around guy willing to fall flat on his face in public in the creative sphere. I am joined with my long-suffering co-host, Justin Curry. He is known the world over as Chasing Artwork, and graphic novelist, writer, all-around logistical wizard, Lyndon Radchenka also joins us today.
Hello, I'm back.
Okay, so dear listener, one thing that happened is Justin breezed in like a whirlwind and said, okay, what are we talking about today? Then he said, no, shut up, save it for the podcast. And then we started.
Time-sensitive podcast. We don't have time.
That's right. We don't have time to plan ahead. So we're going to put some of our planning in front of you here. A couple of things I thought we could talk about today, Justin, because I spent the last week, almost 72 hours of the last week, poring over 3 different contracts for 3 different projects. And all of it is good news. So it's like, it's fine to talk about. It's fine, whatever. And I thought one of the things we could talk about are the things to consider if you're an independent creative and you're partnering with a publisher or another company of any sort, what kind of things you put in your pitches and your contracts and what are the things to look for. You've had plenty of experience with that, so have I. So that's something that we could have. We could also table that to another discussion. There's also where we are on the calendar, which is January, which means the great salad bar of the year is before us, where we take a little bit of this and a little bit of travel and a little bit of planning and a little bit of stress and a little bit of, and we're planning out our year at the salad bar right now, thanks to these amazing, wonderful, gigantic calendars you had printed for all of us. So we could also talk about that.
I didn't get one.
You didn't ask for one.
That's right.
Yeah.
I like how you turned your omission into shade on us for a moment.
I think even in the group chat, I asked if Infinite Studios wanted one.
You definitely did.
Yeah, okay. Do you guys, I always feel like I get, like I drown in inspiration and motivation this time of year.
Oh, it's the worst.
It's, yeah, you're looking at your year's worth. We start to plan like our convention season and our big hopes and dreams for the year, and just all these ideas flood. And we talked about it. We talked about it in like a couple of podcasts about it. Yeah, just the burden of choice, because all these things are available to us, and where do we pour our efforts and time into? And it's just, yeah, every January I look forward to it / dread it, just drowning in that inspiration.
And there's also a piece of that where I have to partition what I'm interested in accomplishing and what makes fiduciary sense.
Mm-hmm.
And those are 2 separate columns. And I think sometimes
Sometimes they're not.
Sometimes they're not. And so obviously the ones that go up higher on the priority are the ones where those 2 things cross really clearly, where it's like, oh, I think this is something where the audience will respond, or the audience already exists, or I've already put that time in, versus the new idea, which will require me to make new space and new time and find new people. And,
it's a risk. You don't know if it's going to land or not.
Those ones are the ones that excite me the most,
yes.
Are the ones that I am absolutely not sure at all if they will work.
Well, you talked about this a bit on last podcast as well. You were asking, when something works, are you responsible, like just as, somebody who contributes to a household and, you need to bring home the bacon. When something works, do you need to follow that? Or like as an artist, you want to, now that you've already done that and accomplished that in that arena, you want to try something else over here. You want to grow, you want to do different things. But the business hat is like, no, this last thing worked. Do more of that.
Yeah. And I think, so I'm always of 2 minds of it. It's a grand paradox for me, because if I am not interested in what it is I'm going to do, I cannot begin in earnest. I have to have that spark. But there also is a tipping point for me where if there's a large enough body of work, even if it isn't totally refined, I need someone else to tell me which one to finish. I don't really need someone else. Sometimes that someone else is me and it's just reflection. But we've also talked in the past at the studio about pitch season.
Yeah.
Right. And so one of the things that we do here is we will send out pitches for projects that are far enough along that the whole idea is visible, but not finished necessarily. And we'll send that to publishers or creative partners and say, hey, what do you think about this? Where does this fit into your schedule? How does that work? And so in that way, if you have the creative flood going on, you're able to bucket, you're tossing buckets out of it to keep everything afloat, and those buckets go back into the ocean.
It's also great. Like once it's a big hurdle to first put that pitch together. That's like if we're talking about like a graphic novel pitch, like to put all that content and that info together the first time is a bit of an endeavor. But once you've done it once, twice, it's pretty easy to kind of refill in those spaces with a new idea.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about pinching companies, trying to get your comics or graphic novels out there, that first time is going to be a huge hurdle, but then it gets easier and easier and easier.
So, okay.
And the other nice thing is, if something gets accepted, now you know what you're working on next.
That's what I was going to say.
I was going to say when I talk to my creative collaborators, the artists that I'm working on, I always tell them, do what's paying you money first. And then worry about the other stuff.
Yeah, we call
especially if there's deadlines.
Yeah, the repulsive essentials. You got to deal with the repulsive essentials, and then you can deal with the other things. But if you have enough sort of in the pile, I'm just gonna let you finish with that tape. This is Lyndon.
I don't think they can hear the tape on the mic.
Can they not? Okay.
Dear listener, if you hear the ripping of tape in the background, it's because
I'm
the
being kicked to a chair. Help.
the chasing artwork machine never sleeps, and the orders have to go out.
Perfect. Oh my goodness. All right, so I lost my train of thought, but I will reboard it at the station as follows. If you have a bunch of stuff and you're trying to get it done and you don't know how to separate one creative idea from the next, I find collaborators are a good way to help organize what you're going to do next. If you have the luxury of having a project where a collaborator fits. So as a really specific example, Blood Letters that I'm working on with Ariel Gordon, it was really long. I think we started working on it in 2014 or something. And we've just been going back and forth slowly until suddenly a moment struck where we said, hey, we should finish that. And we both had a time. And my telling her we were going to finish it meant that she went to work while I was working on something else and then sent me some of the pieces. And then it would remind me, oh, yeah, I love this. And it was okay for it to resurface over and over and over again in my life at a steady interval. So collaborators can do that.
Well, the other thing you mentioned in there was you had a deadline now.
Now we have a deadline.
So I find too, when I'm kind of swimming in all these project ideas and potentials, I try to attach them to for me, it's usually Comic-Con. So in April, a couple months from now is my first big convention of the year. So a lot of the big projects I'm kind of aiming, like if I want this printed and produced on canvases, which takes extra time, when is that deadline to have it ready for this convention at the end of April, right? So as soon as that attaches, the project gets I want to say 5% more real.
Yeah, more real. And the public event becomes the reason to announce it also in a way that seems a little bit more like it's been ceremonialized.
Yeah.
One of the ways in which I set internal deadlines with collaborators is if, for example, I'm going to meet a stakeholder in person. So we'll define a stakeholder as a publisher or a distributor or a store, like wherever it is that you're going to be trying to get the work out there. If I'm having an in-person meeting with someone like that for something else, I am prepared for it's good, but what else you got? And I like to have the next thing from a collaborator lined up at least organized in such a way where it's pitchable as an idea or there's something to show in concept. So if I'm going to meet with one of those people for one project, I always have two.
Yeah, if your heart's on your sleeve, it's pretty easy to get hurt. But if you have another heart hidden
That's right.
up your sleeve,
Yeah. And plenty of times, that can lead to no to both of those ideas, but I like the range that you're presenting. I would love to hear your next idea. Why don't you send it right away?
You were right about one thing, Kevin. I have been watching. Couldn't help myself. Watching. Waiting. Holding my breath.
Those kinds of things are a good place to store last year's orphans and the year before orphans, like stuff that you would have worked on if you had time. You got it close enough to pitching, but you got 1 or 2 no's, or maybe 5 no's, or maybe 100 no's, and it just wasn't right. A few years go by, and you have that pitch sitting around. You can polish it a little bit, present it again. So those things
And things change, tastes change, the market changes, right? Whatever that idea was, maybe it was, sci-fi vampires. Nobody wanted that 5 years ago, but now it's maybe time for that pitch.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think vampires are coming back.
Yeah.
I think they're back.
We're entering in that 20-year cycle again.
Yeah,
We're back.
80s, Demeter,
2000s, 2020s.
Nosferatu. Yeah, they're all back. Yeah.
When did Interview with the Vampire come out?
93, 94.
The book?
Oh, the book well before that, but
Yeah.
it was like
Yeah.
early 90s.
Yeah,
when that-
so
If only one of us was in front of a computer, like a producer on a podcast might.
I just wanted to know if any of the co-hosts here were vampire superfans in the
They-
closet.
I read all those Anne Rice books back in the day. Yeah.
They recreated Interview with the Vampires, now a show.
Yeah, there's a new one out. Yeah. Which is, again, this notion of
Dear listener, Interview with the Vampire came out in 1976.
Well, the
the original novel.
Yeah.
But Brad Pitt movie.
Oh, yeah. No.
When did that come out?
Oh, you
I want to see if I was right.
came out in 1994.
Oh, so close. Now, that is a lot of years difference. So those of you who are saying, oh, I'll just write my novel, have it be wildly successful, and then that'll get turned into a movie, please note the time interval between those two events. And it would have been in development for a lot of years before it even got that far.
I would almost argue the longer between the book and the movie, the better the movie. The quicker the turnaround. If a book is instantly big and then they immediately turn it into a movie, less likely to be a good movie.
Good movie. See Where the Crawdad Sings for my direct example of that.
Lord of the Rings is my rebuttal.
Yeah, exactly. Lord of the Rings is a great example.
Where the Crawdad Sings is
The
very
movie.
old.
Yeah, it's a new book that was incredible. It was a book that I was so surprised lived up to its hype. Books rarely do. New books that are hyped so heavily.
Yeah.
It's usually for sales and not always, it's not always as delicious when you read it, but man, that book just took me away to a whole other world. And then almost like it's felt like 12 months later, the movie was in production.
That Joaquin Phoenix one as well, the small book. It's like I Was Never Here or something like that.
We Were Never Here.
We Were Never Here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That movie's pretty good.
It is a great movie. And what was most fascinating about that movie was how closely it was almost like rereading the book visually.
But wasn't that book also new? So maybe this is a counterexample
Might
to
be
an
a
entire thesis. A good argument should contain examples of all sides.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. So there are exceptions. So, I mean, we don't know what we're talking about. We have never had anything made into a television series in any significant way. So we'll let you know if that ever happens.
So, okay, something I have like an ongoing note of things to bring up on the podcast. And one of the things I think about this time of year is mediums. I have ideas for different projects, and I like trying out different mediums. And kind of my go-tos are printed posters. I like to stretch my stuff on canvases. A new medium, kind of newer to me, is enamel pins. Is kind of a new product that I've been loving the design process because it's a bit of a almost like a puzzle to simplify designs into small, like 1 to 2 inch pin designs. Foil printing is something new that I've been getting into, just a little bit of extra oomph to prints, and just moving forward, just looking at the different mediums available to artists and different advances in technology and different things that are
minimum orders, all that stuff is really important. My mediums then for sure are graphic novels, like comics, graphic novels, books, tabletop RPGs, illustrated novels, and lately dabbling a little bit in independent film and theater and things like that. But it really is, like you say, it's just a way to change the rules to see if the shape of the idea can be refined downward into something like
Taking a graphic novel and making it a strip of tape.
but also even look at it like this.
Books on tape.
Yeah. The enamel pin scenario. You have enamel pins. I have some. The ones that I chose, I tried to say, which of the pins am I going to make? What is the icon from different series and graphic novels and things that I have that will be the symbol of the idea? So then it forces you to think down and compress it down into a single, very simple image. It takes so long. It took me so much longer than it should have.
But again, that's muscles that you're not usually flexing because you never really do that. So it was kind of like one of the first times you did that. But already you've got what, like 7-8 pins designed now?
I mean, you need that too. Like I don't know if we've talked about this on the podcast before, but it seems like as both of you get more involved in becoming pin guys, as it is, you need more and more pins.
House of Sin guys. So we're not those. I have a few bonus material enamel pins is how I think about my
super pulp pin guys.
Oh no.
Or stickers or something that I'm seeing more and more at conventions. Not just like the little like cheap stickers, but like big elaborate like $15 to $20 stickers, like 6x6.
Those
stickers.
are way too big of a commitment for me to ever purchase.
I want to make an observation about the stickers, but it will require some visual storytelling for the dear listener. It's important that you know that Justin is 10 years younger than me, and Lyndon is 10 years younger, roughly, than Justin.
Not quite, but close.
Yeah. And so I want you to imagine the haggard old gray wizard who is talking to you now, speaking from that mountaintop, looking down into the past. I think why stickers are such a big deal right now is that when I was a kid, there was print media galore, and you would just tear out pages from magazines and you'd tear out pages from newspapers, and anything that you liked that you wanted to put up representative of yourself, it was all around you, and you could just rip it apart from your records and other things and put it up. Now that stuff is gone. Like the modern world does not have that. And
What do kids put on their walls these days?
Stickers. Right? And your prints.
Did you use glue sticks?
Oh, yeah.
That's what you put up on your wall?
Oh, yeah.
Sticky tack.
Magazines?
Sticky
glue
tack,
sticks?
magazines, you use tape, you all kinds of stuff.
Oh, my God.
Thumbtacks.
Yeah.
See, it's
Ancient technology.
at some age, I just started buying like poster frames because I didn't want to thumbtack my posters into my wall. I wanted them to display nice.
And that comes down to the scarcity, right? Like there was so much print media when I was young that tearing stuff up, it was no big deal. There was so much of it. They never thought twice about how you're going to get more. Now there's so little of it, people are buying our exclusive posters.
Are there still poster racks at like Walmart? Before I used to go to like HMV and there would be poster racks and you'd flip through and find the number and find it in the stand.
I'm no puppeteer, Kevin. I don't make things happen. Doesn't work like that.
I got really excited the other day because I found on one of my manufacturer's websites that they were now offering slap bracelets.
Oh, no.
And I got really excited until my girlfriend informed me that slap bracelets were banned in Canada for good reason.
Yeah, because they were like,
What is a slap bracelet?
Okay, here we go.
it's a rigid.
I know that was the cue for me.
It's a piece of measuring tape, like those extender measuring tapes.
About the length of a ruler.
They cut a bit of that off.
Oh, and they rolled around your wrist.
And then you slap them
I
on your
do
wrist.
remember those.
And they were everywhere for a period in the 90s. And then they started to be...
Can you hear the wind whistling through the generation gap?
But they started to be made very cheaply, and of course, like it's you're cutting strips of metal, and so the metal would come through whatever the fabric or whatever was on top. So kids were getting cut. And
All
They're
we
getting
need,
cut and
all
there
we
was, like-
need is a couple strategic TikTok videos, and those will be right back in fashion.
But I have no scientific evidence to back up this claim. This is just the rumor from that era. The reason they stopped being widely distributed is because kids were getting cut by them, and there was such a high lead content in that cheap manufacturing that it was bad.
like it wasn't just a normal cut.
That's right.
You okay?
Now, who knows?
But I was really hoping you guys would talk me into making them, and I.
I think if you're going to do that and you don't make pogs, then I don't even think.
Pogs.
you
But
could-
Darcy said not to do it, right?
Darcy said not to.
So
do
you-
that.
so you have to do it.
No, I
Yeah.
work. I might look into it.
What if what if now? I don't want to out any of your practices related to some pretty great customers, but sometimes you have some people who have really come through for you as customers, and you give them sort of special items as a way of showing it. That might be one of those fun things where you get to slap it on their wrist and they get the special Chasing Artwork super
Could you do Chasing Artwork scrunchies? That's just a fabric.
jelly shoes.
That's something to talk about because, Greg and I, we're at the point where our businesses are at the size. Lyndon, you'll get there.
Hopefully.
When
He'll be there next month.
like you start to think about like the loss leader things that you include in orders and offer to your
As
like,
genuine
customers.
thank you.
Yeah, so I've printed like sketchbooks that I've never really sold, but I give away to like younger fans and stuff. Lanyards was another one I've never really sold them, but I've given them away, and like they're a neat little product to have at your table, but they don't make sense to sell with your rest of your product line. So you include them as almost like a.
And I have a few
thank
short
you.
run like printing things that I don't really sell them, but to those people who have continued to show up over and over to support the work.
Did you
When they're
try
like,
to
"What's
sell
the
them
new
first?
thing?" No.
Okay,
I just
it was
said-
always a.
Yeah, it was just like they're really weird, and it's like it's maybe too weird for regular people, but you get me. So I made a certain number, like made 50 of these, and you're one of the people that gets one. And there's only ever going to be 50 of these, and there only ever was, and they got it as a legitimate thank you, right? Just for that support, And to those people's credit, I've never seen one on eBay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's kind of that's a nice venue to try those random mediums, to try a slap bracelet because you have no idea if it's going to make money. But even if it doesn't, you now have this awesome little like kind of goodie bag to send your customers away with to include in orders.
Add some smiles.
So you're willing to lead poison one of your fans, Justin. That's what I'm hearing here.
Yeah. I might have to do some research. I just got really excited when I saw that because I hadn't thought about slap bracelets since not.
I didn't know they had
Thought
a
about
name.
lead poisoning anyone in a long time.
Maybe a long time for you.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Well, is this just a Canadian ban or is this like a North American thing or?
You know, there was
I don't even
someone
know if
who
it
had a
was banned.
computer.
These are just rumors, right? Who knows what happens? Some kid choked on a metal pog, and now we don't have pogs anymore. Like
I think everybody just realized Pogs were kind of dumb.
pogs were the NFTs of the 80s.
Yes, they were. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Holy wow.
The top Google answer here for why did slap bracelets get banned was that in the early 90s they were cheaply made and used to stab people with the metal through the fabric casings.
Okay.
Just bleeding children.
I don't see anything about lead poisoning, but again, this result is linked directly to a post on TikTok, so we might be too late for this.
That's right.
The train might already be gone. Yeah.
Train is already happening. Okay, so speaking of trains as they leave the station, one thing that a lot of creatives will face eventually is the dreaded contract. And I think we should bring it up. This past while, I had a lot of contract stuff. Now, let's, in the interest of full disclosure, mention that Lyndon.
Are we naming names?
No, we can name names.
We
in a minute.
probably shouldn't because I like the people involved in this.
No, but this is what I'm going to say: is everything was resolved wonderfully.
Okay.
So it's very easy to talk about how it all shook out, and it's important to maybe reiterate when you have to fight your corner and be willing to say, okay, well, no deal then, right? But Lyndon, you went to law school.
Vaguely.
Vaguely, right?
Half the bar, I think a little more than vaguely.
Yeah, that's more than vague. So one of the things that we have here in the studio is at least somebody to read a clause and say, that's not stupid, maybe reword it this way, right?
To the Law Society that inevitably uses this in their deposition. No, I am not providing anyone any kind of legal service or advice, and I always tell them to actually talk to a lawyer.
It's true. And I have a lawyer, which I'm seeing today at 1 o'clock, maybe 1:30 at the rate that we're doing this recording. So that's fine. But I think it's really important for you, dear listener, to read your own contract carefully. And yes, like Shakespeare, it will take you a while to get the cadence of what is being said. And just like Shakespeare, there are plenty of cheater note resources that you can look up what those clauses really mean and what they really say. Does that mean you are a lawyer now? No. Does it mean that you can more clearly put in layman's terms what it is you're trying to get out of your contract? Absolutely it does. And it's really important that you be able to translate what the clauses do into layman's language, or else you'll sign away everything important. If a publisher is passing you a contract, it isn't fair. That is the nature of contracts. If you develop that contract together, it's likely fair. So just consider that. Just because it was printed out doesn't mean it can't be changed.
But Gregory, I've never published a book, and the publisher's offering me a contract, and I don't like it. What do I do?
Yeah, if I say
no,
or
they're gonna
maybe,
take
just
my
like,
book deal.
Well, you lost your chance, kid.
Yeah, exactly. That is what can happen. Is if you fight your corner, you will sometimes be pushed out of those contracts and out of those deals. But would you rather have done all that work, maybe in some cases years and years, maybe decades of work, to not own it, not have it promoted, and not have it go anywhere?
We have heard some horror stories of people signing contracts and they didn't read it carefully enough and lost the rights to their entire little empire that they've built because they signed with the wrong company and the company was evil and
more
but
than one.
took it.
There are instances where it is worth it to do that.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, as a creative, you need to weigh what the outcome is going to be and decide if it's worth the cost of the rights of some of your properties.
Absolutely true. And you have to take the king's shilling sometimes, but you should know what's being asked of you.
Yes.
Right?
So always, my two pieces of advice are always get other people to look at the contracts or with you. Like it's not a bad thing to have other people look at it, right? Remember when I started off, I thought like this was kind of like NDA. As soon as the contract was sent to you, you're not allowed to like show anybody.
Yeah.
But no, print it out, get people to look at it, get some other eyes on it. And the other thing, so for example, like, Gregory and I sell stuff at Comic-Con. So every contract that comes across my table, I'm always trying to work in, I get to have X amount of whatever it is for my inventory to sell at conventions. I get to print the poster that I'm doing for this book cover. I get to, if maybe this blows up and that's great, but if it doesn't, I want a way to bring this back to my business to be able
Hold
to
on,
use it.
business shark. Let's back up a step. Let's say you're a new creative and you have got a contract and you are totally scared because you've never even looked at one of those before. Here is my advice for who to show it to first.
Yeah.
The first thing you should do is, let's say you're an author. You probably have friends who are authors. You should ask them to look at it. Do they have any experience with contracts at all? Can you look at this one? Does it seem similar to the ones that you have signed or not? This is, again, not legal advice. They're not lawyers. But they can tell you almost at a glance, if they've been in the business for a while, what is fair and what is unfair.
Chances are, if you're a new author, though, you probably run around most closely with other new authors.
Right, but share it within your own circle.
Absolutely.
Right? And then the next step is, once you've got a little bit of advice, like, hey, I'm not sure what this clause means, from 2 or 3 of your peers.
And especially when you're starting out, they probably don't either because they just cobbled together this from stuff they grabbed off the internet for contracts. And they're also kind of fumbling their way through this.
Yeah. And it also depends on what size the organization is that has sent their contract to you. For example, I did some work for a video game company. Their contract was like 65 pages long. And most of the clauses had absolutely nothing to do with me. And so I said...
They were reusing a contract from something else.
Literally, 65 pages long. So you and I came up, Lyndon and I came up with a different contract, which we had a lawyer look at after we cobbled it together in layman's terms. Lyndon was not providing legal advice.
Thank you.
That was only 2 pages long. That only governed what it was I was doing for them. I didn't need to sign all that other stuff. And that other contract was so scary because I could have accidentally signed away rights to things that they didn't even mean to ask for because it was just baked into this huge thing. And nobody stressed on the other end. I thought this was going to be a deal breaker when I said, I'm not signing yours, will you sign mine? They looked it over and said, oh, this is so much simpler. It just governs what it is we're talking about. I'll send it to legal to review. Legal came back and said, this is perfect and clean and nice. No problem. Yes. These things are normal. It is a negotiation, right? You're
That's
not
the fear that they were going to come back like, well, you didn't sign ours. We don't want to even look at yours.
That's right. But you have to be willing to accept that that is how some people behave.
Yeah.
And, dear listener, may I point out, if a person is so nervous to change their contract, something's wrong.
What are you? Oh, I have so many names. See, call me Dad.
If they cannot have a reasonable discussion about something as tense as a contract, how are you going to have a reasonable discussion about something as personal to you as the creative work you gave them?
And I think we've both definitely been in that situation where we got to that point in the negotiations, and that's when all the red flags went up, and that's when the project fell apart because you realize, oh, I don't want anything to do with this person or company or corporation. Like,
They
bad
lost their
news.
cool
Yeah.
and I asked a simple question.
What does this mean? Yeah.
I had a publishing contract negotiation once where I was trying to introduce a kill clause into the contract.
Sunset clause?
Well, whatever you would like to call it. What the conditions in which we would get the rights to our book back.
So colloquially, that's referred to as a sunset clause in publishing, but there's lots of different names for it. Yeah.
And one of the go-tos that I always request in my contracts is if the company that we're dealing with gets sold to someone else, we automatically get our rights back because I'm signing this contract with you. I don't want to work with someone else. And this publisher was very hesitant and, in fact, refused to include that contract.
Were they in the middle of something?
No, but as we would later learn, the purpose of that company was to gather IP and then sell it.
Oh.
Sell themselves so that the owners could all make money.
They're entrepreneurs.
Yeah, they're entrepreneurs.
Someone has handed me
This just in.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. Someone would like to suggest something. Someone who has previously been unannounced. A surprise guest. From the field, we are. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Just because-
Dr. Jonathan Ball, can you hear me?
Just because you're talking contracts, I just want to suggest a contract tip. You tell me what you think of this. Non-lawyer Lyndon. I'm not asking him.
Right. He
I don't
can
want
provide
legal
us legal advice.
But you, Gregory, what do you think of this contract tip? Justin can chime in too, but yeah, I feel like you will appreciate it. What I like to do when I get sent a contract, like say for a book publishing, is I like to go through, change the contract, tell them I changed it a little here and there, and then send it back to them. I just say,
You send it back signed?
I sign it. So I'll go through, for example, and just delete clauses wholesale, sign it, and then send it back to them. I won't like be sneaky about it. I'll say, hey, I changed, a bunch of clauses, just, to make it simpler, send it back to you. It's signed, ready to go if you guys are good.
What do I think about that? I did that recently, but with no subterfuge. I
not
took out
subterfuge.
4 different clauses that couldn't apply. One of them, for example, a right of first refusal, which is to suggest that the next book you have to send to that publisher first. Because I was working on 3 different contracts right at that time for 3 different book projects right at that time, all of them were in breach of that clause. So I had to remove that clause from all of them, for example.
And just quick aside, what's the worst case scenario with the right of first refusal? Is that they say, yes, we want it, and then they hold on to it and don't do anything with
That's
it?
right.
So it kind of kills the project.
It just, it sits for, or
Well, no.
their publishing schedule. In my case, here's my reasons. Yours might be different. My reasons for taking out the right of first refusal is I work with publishers big and small, and I want the projects out, and I don't want to wait on somebody else's idea of my career trajectory. And if their publishing capital is mid to small, it might mean that second book has to wait 3 years to come out, or 4 years, or 5 years if they accept it.
You're talking about a different clause, the next book clause, though, right?
That too.
Right of first refusal, if it's written properly, which it might not be, if it's written properly, really, you just would get a slow response when you maybe want to be talking to other people. So really, there's not a lot of bad things that come from it, but it does
I mentioned
really
four that I
pull
would
your
take out.
options down, like you
Right
say.
at first refusal, that next book clause, usually one that is related to cross marketing. And the other clause I almost always take out, in fact, I always take out, but it's not present in every contract. Be really suspicious, dear listener, of contracts that include a clause that say you are not allowed to discuss this contract with anyone. This is only there if your contract is unfair. This is specifically there so that you cannot air a grievance in public about an unfair condition.
Especially in vanity presses.
That's right.
But no, to go back to the right of first refusal, my understanding of them, again, non-legal understanding of them, is that the right of first refusal clause exists so that when you create a work, your publisher that has that clause gets the first opportunity to review it and present you with a publishing agreement for it if they're interested.
Right.
You are not obligated to take that agreement if you don't want to.
Correct.
Okay.
But you are obligated to
Well-
wait. Hold on. You're obligated to wait until they're done before you're allowed to send it to anyone else.
You say correct. Now, that is correct if the clause is written normally and properly. It could, in fact, not be written normally and properly. I think this is what you're kind of edging into. If that clause is not worded right, you could be in a really weird and bad situation where maybe you have to take a deal as long as it's quote unquote a fair deal. So you can get
And
gray and
fair
weird.
is sometimes listed in the clause as defined by the publisher.
Well, it's just very. It gets into a situation where now you got to sue one another, which you don't want to do typically. And you also, of course, even if everything's fine and above board, it's generally a bad. I mean, I've signed it. Don't get me wrong, but I agree with you. Typically, I would want it out of there, not because I don't want to work with that publisher again, but because it really just slows everything down. Best case scenario, you are on the hook to wait for them to respond to you the prescribed amount of time you have to wait to respond to you. You can't do things like talk about, I got all these things when you're talking. If you just happen to be in a room with someone who works at Netflix, you can't talk to them about it.
Right.
So it just really, even in a way that hurts the publisher, weirdly, limits your options to talk about things like what you got going on.
Yeah. I usually include a clause that says I am allowed to represent the work.
Right.
Right.
So if you're in that room, you can talk about it
That's
and
right.
not worry about
Yeah.
stepping on toes.
Now, this is not to say that it cuts the publisher out in those cases, right? You have to be nice. You have to talk with the publisher. You got to figure out what that clause is really about. But you want to be able to represent your own work should the opportunity arise. You'll have to share it, though, and you'll have to understand how that all works. One important thing I will say right now is I've worked with a number of different Canadian publishers in the past. Highwater Press, Portage and Main Press, delightful to work with, very reasonable. Their contract is excellent. And if parts of it you found not excellent, you can have a very human conversation about what
Yeah.
things you want changed.
9 out of 10 times when I have things I want to change on the contract, they're more than happy to negotiate, talk, like explain things. Like it's only every once in a while something seems a little shady and a little off, and they're kind of skittish when talking about it. Most of the time, they're more than happy to talk about it.
Renegade Arts Entertainment, also excellent contracts. So these are two publishers that are currently in business, working hard. They are accepting submissions. So this is why I bring them up. Like they are very easy to work with. Great Plains, which is here in Winnipeg, and Epee Press. I've just was going through those contract negotiations. So that all happened with a smile, but not as smoothly as I would have liked it to have gone. And it required a fair amount of explanation on my behalf. Why do you need this changed? Why would we change it for you if we're not changing it for somebody else? And you cannot see that as too adversarial. And if you do, then it becomes a fight. And instead, you have to try to, as dispassionately as possible, explain why it is you need it. And it could be related to some other things you're doing. In my case, it was always related to some other thing I was doing. So I didn't want there to be a conflict.
Invigorating.
What did you say to him?
I told him that if he didn't leave us alone, you were going to kick his ass.
Cheesine, the now defunct Cheesine, one of my early publishers,
Had a great contract.
No. Well, they did. They were willing to negotiate, but occasionally
That
They would-
contract was never looked at again once it was signed.
That's right. It
They
was
did
not
follow.
They did
anything
not
in the-
follow the contract, and at one point,
So they could say anything.
at one
Yeah,
point,
You're right.
and since the company is now defunct, I don't think I am liable to.
Are they?
Yes.
Are they though?
Are they though?
Are they though?
I can say this in my direct experience. One time, a person working for the publisher sent me the last page of a contract without the attached contract,
Yeah.
saying, "Could you please sign this so that we can apply for our arts funding?" With no contract attached. That is fraud, and don't do that. Never, dear listener, sign the last page of a contract with no preceding contract. See the Tom Cruise movie The Firm for all the things that can go wrong if you do that. Right? Yeah. So,
And any other publisher that Gregory didn't mention, he hates you.
no, that is not true. I was just off the top of my head who I really was pleased with in recent memory. Stranger Fiction also has a really great contract, but in full disclosure, that's Jonathan, who was just on the podcast here. So it's easy for us to argue with him.
One
Field agent Jonathan Ball.
Yeah, field agent Jonathan Ball.
almost every convention we do makes us sign a contract.
That's true.
It's fair.
And some of them, like I remember, there's one in specifically. There's a Canadian anime show that in the contract there was a line in the contract that said, "By signing this, you agree to all our terms and any new terms we may come up with between now and the date." Right?
Anything else we can think of?
But you're so scared of like any kind of pushback because already it's hard to get into these
Yeah.
things. So if you're like, "No, I want to renegotiate this contract," they'll just say, "Okay, well, you're out, and we're going to take the next person on the list."
See, the difference between a convention and a publishing agreement.
You can make money at a convention?
What? Shots fired. The real difference.
Dear listener, this is why they bring me on.
Yeah, it's true. No, the real difference is the length of time. If you became nervous about that contract, you could simply not show up. Let them have your money and not show up, and the contract's over when the date expires. Your book, however, lives a very long time.
Forever.
Right? So you don't want to be laissez-faire with how you sign your book contracts. An appearance contract expires past the date of the appearance.
For a weekend.
Yeah, so it's a little different. I mean, this is not legal advice, I will say, at the advice of my co-host, who is not an advice-giving legal person.
Yeah, just to bookend my own story, that contract that we tried to negotiate a sunset clause into, and they didn't want to give it to us in that sense. I think what we ended up doing was I retyped the end of that contract and inserted a clause that said that they could not unreasonably refuse to discuss the end of our contract with us. So that if things were not going well, they would have to talk to us about it, and we could look at ending that contract, which I then signed and sent back to them and was like, "Yeah, I changed the end of this clause. Here's the signed contract if you want this deal."
When we've been nervous or at arm's length with people, we've also included a clause that says we can fire you.
Yeah.
Like the publisher, that we, the author, can fire the publisher and dissolve this
There's
contract.
a clause for both parties to be able to get out
Yeah,
of it. It's
to
not
basi-
just one.
Yeah.
And again, to go back to the other thing we said, the reason we signed that contract, even though we weren't necessarily 100% comfortable with it, was because we weighed the potential benefits of having that book out in a larger market or with a more established, now defunct publisher, and getting that audience built, or the first steps of having an audience built.
Yeah, the devil's bargain is always distribution in publishing.
Yeah.
If somebody has distribution, meaning the books will actually arrive in stores, and if someone hears about it, they can actually order it from stores across this great globe of ours. Man, that's worth so much. That's why the contract is so heavily weighted towards the publisher. That is an enormous,
Your ability to say, you can order this anywhere you order books.
yeah, huge. But the internal discussion here in studio for me is always, right? I've said it before, 1 for them, 2 for us. So if you're going to sign that bargain to be more widely available, you should definitely have a few things that you control completely.
What's something fun we can end the podcast talking about? We're talking about contracts. I went to law school. I don't find them that fun.
Why don't you tell us a fun law school story?
No, absolutely not.
There are no fun law school stories. Well, then maybe what we should do as our last idea of this episode is look forward in the calendar to that great salad bar and say, what is the thing you think you're most looking forward to, the event you're most looking forward to this year, that is a way to show off one of these new ideas? What is those? Not a guaranteed success, but I can't wait for someone to hold my X at the Y. No, that could come up wrong.
Not necessarily like a new stuff, but Winnipeg does this event called First Fridays, where every first Friday of the month, the downtown kind of opens its doors for like galleries and art studios and various like coffee shops stay open later. And it's just supposed to be a way to make people kind of flood to the downtown that first Friday of the month and wander around checking things out. And it's been a while since we've done one at the studio.
I can't wait to.
And so we're starting to plan. February still might be too cold for people to really be kind of out and about.
Yep.
But maybe February, maybe March, we're going to be opening up the studio doors for the first time in a while. And I'm really excited about that because it's you have that home team advantage, home advantage. There's no stress, all the product, anything that anybody could want. If it's not here, then it doesn't exist. So that's something I've been looking forward to in the next month or two.
Oh,
Open
that is
studio.
going to be so fun.
Yeah.
A big open studio. My thing that I'm most, I think, looking forward to is also in March. I have a few other things that I'm excited about releasing that are previously talked about, but this is the year of the dice for me. In March, I have a agreement with Game Night, which is a local gaming store, big, sprawling gaming store, to do a soft launch of my Danger in the Details role-playing game. We're doing 6 different events over the course of March to reveal at a locally owned store, a locally made game, and really put that out into the world for the first time. I've been doing it tangentially a little bit here and there all over, doing play testing and gathering enough stuff, but now it's codified into a proper rule book and everything that goes along with it, and I can't.
So it's
Can't
kind of like
wait.
a book launch, but game launch at a game store
Yeah, game launch at the game store 6 different times.
with more involvement with the audience.
That's right.
They get to
direct with the audience, and that is kind of a 20-year dream come true for me. So even if it fails utterly, I'm going to be having the greatest time. Just the nerd in me is just going to be rolling dice and making up stuff. So that's the part that maybe has the least to do with my current career and the most to do with my heart. So that's the one that I'm looking forward to.
I've got 4. I couldn't pick one.
Yeah, I have others. I'm withholding because we're
Somebody
at
should
the
talk
end
about
of the episode.
Calgary because we just rented a big B&B that we're all going to stay at.
It's true. 'Cause that's number 2 for me. So number 1, I'm looking forward to a very small show that Gregory and I are planning to exhibit at. I don't know if the details have been released
Yeah,
yet.
we haven't released the details yet. Okay, that is also on my list too, but that's real soon.
That's what I'm really excited for. Number 2 is Calgary. I'm really excited to do Calgary with Steven again. There was a large hole in the crew last year in the committee.
I know, I miss you, Stephen.
As Justin said, we rented a big B&B for it. Number 3 is maybe a couple new
I
shows.
didn't even know we were ranking them. I thought we were just sharing one.
Couple new
Lyndon
shows.
doesn't read the concept.
Couple new shows this season that I'm hoping to go to for the first time, whether that's exhibiting as Infinite Studio or as part of the Chasing Artwork team. Number 4, I'm looking forward to accosting more professional editors this year and getting rejected.
Yeah.
Cannot wait.
Collect those rejections.
Yeah, I'm going to a meeting later this afternoon to be rejected about something. I can't wait.
It's the dream.
It is the dream. The requisite number of no's is very important, dear listener. So I think this is a nice bunch of smiles to end our episode on. We're all looking towards the future. Sometimes that means you have to carefully read your contract to decide what's happening next. And sometimes it means just booking a table in a strange city and hoping for the best. This is JMB Kamichuk encouraging you to join the fight and make comics.